China is an autocracy. Its political system is authoritarian without elected officials nor direct elections. These are the claims you would be bombarded with nowadays while typing keywords like politics in China in the search bar. However, is it really the case? I'm Sina. Welcome to Foxtel. Recently, the convening of China's two sessions, the biggest annual event on China's political calendar, triggered another wave of reports by Western mainstream media questioning the country's political system. Like this one. It talked about how the attempts at promoting grassroots democracy at the village level have sputtered in the face of the party's so-called overwhelming power and authorities' willingness to use force and coercion. In our team's line of work, we focus on fact-checking and creating a space for diverse and alternative voices and inviting them to the conversation. In today's China, what is democracy at the village level like? Are there direct elections? What do those people who have spent years hard at work in their roles on the grassroots level have to say about their alleged willingness to use force and coercion? Today, we invite Mr. Shen Rui, who worked as a poverty alleviation commissioner in Kuijiu. Kuijiu is a village in the mountain of Liangshan in southwest China's Sichuan province. Liangshan used to be one of the 3 provost prefectures in China. The villagers there are members of the Yi group, one of the ethnic minorities in China. It is our pleasure to have Shen Rui to be with us today. 你好，沈瑞，欢迎做客真相放大镜。
好，谢谢。
Before I start asking questions, I want to make sure we are on the same page about what the current policies are. After that, we'll look into deeper if what happened in the village comports wisdom. Here's a graphic showing the election process of villagers' committees, which is part of the democratic process of grassroots organization self-governance in China. The system is called the system of committee-level self-governance in rural areas. Villagers' committee are the self-governance organizations of the people in their own residential areas. Data show that there were more than 490,000 committees of this kind across rural China by the end of 2021. Now let's take a closer look at this graphic again. My key takeaways from it are: 1. Under this framework, villagers directly nominate and vote for candidates. The outcome is announced on the spot. 2. If the village has residents from more than one ethnic group, at least one elected member shall be an ethnic minority. 3. Members elected to the committee shall include at least one female. Let's look into them one by one. In our previous episode, we took a thorough look on the country's policies regarding ethnic minority groups. If you want a quick walkthrough of China's system of regional autonomy in all areas inhabited by ethnic minorities, be sure to check it out. Now let's find out how gender equality is practiced under the system of community-level self-governance.
It's a typical sight here in the Chinese countryside. Women working the field and preparing meals for their family. But it's rare to find 41-year-old Peng Wei-ling in her kitchen. She has little time for domestic chores. That's because Peng is busy in a very different kind of role, that of Communist Party secretary for her village. She was elected 4 years ago, the first time ever that a woman in her province attained such a leadership position.
Here, I want to double-check with our guest if this is also consistent with his personal observations. 沈瑞你好，在驻村工作期间，据你观察，大连山当地村官和基层干部中女性占比情况如何？妇女权益保障和参政参选积极性在中国乡村的落实情况是怎样呢？
现在很多的社区书记或者主任，她都是女性。
Nowadays, many communities' party secretaries and directors are women. They carry out their work very well with dedication and a sense of responsibility. Each year, a large portion of annual awards will be given to women because our female directors are a very important part of village committees. Female directors are central to our work related to women and children at the grassroots level in China. For example, tasks from compulsory education to vaccination wouldn't be done without our female directors and their quiet efforts behind the scenes.
那能不能给我们分享一个你从亲眼目睹的事例呢？
例子的话就太多了，我举其中一个很小的例
There are
子。
far too many examples, and I will talk about a small one. Because the foundation of rural revitalization is the improvement of the living environment and the health of the people, as well as their hygiene habits. In remote ethnic minority regions like ours, there is a very important task that may go unnoticed, which is to raise awareness on feminine pads. There's little that we, as male staff, could do about it, right? And then, there's the issue of compulsory education for children. Many of our female directors oftentimes spread the word by visiting people's homes and chatting with them. They've made great progress. So really, women do hold up half the sky.
谢谢沈瑞，我们一会儿接着聊。During our research, we found that one of the key doubts is whether a township or a higher level government agency would be able to rig local elections at a village level so that the final results will suit their wishes. We combed through the organic law of the villages committees of the People's Republic of China. It says in Article 4, the people's government of a township, a nationality township, or town shall guide, support, and help the villages committee in their work, but may not interfere with the affairs that lawfully fall within the scope of the village's self-government. Article 11 says members of a villagers committee shall be elected directly by the villagers. No organization or individual may designate, appoint, or replace any member of villagers committee. According to a detailed legal interpretation by the National People's Congress, villagers committee are not subordinate to township governments. The relationship between them should be defined as a guiding relationship rather than a leading relationship. Here's a short video taken by the US-based Carter Center documenting the entire process of a Chinese village election its staff observed.
A typical village election in China begins with election officials reading the election process to the crowd. Then the candidates take turns giving their campaign speeches, each telling their neighbors what they will do for the community if elected to positions similar to mayors or city council members in the U.S. The candidates answer questions, and then the voting process begins. Ballot boxes are shown to be empty, and the villagers line up to have their registration checked and receive ballots, sometimes more than one, as they may receive a proxy for family members or friends working in jobs far away. Zhang Ruiai, a farmer, has come with her grandchild Liu Xin from a home 3 hours from here. Ruiai enters a private voting booth to check off her choices for a village chairperson, vice chair, and committee member, then places her ballot in one of the official boxes. At the election officials' table are the roving boxes that were taken house to house on foot or by bicycle to collect ballots from the elderly, sick, or others unable to come to cast their votes in person. In this village, typical of most, over 80% of eligible voters cast a vote. In full view of the crowd, all of the ballots are emptied from the boxes onto a tarp on the ground, where they are counted and gathered for tabulation. The long vote counting process begins with an election official marking votes on a board as they're called out. Meanwhile, to entertain villagers awaiting results, a colorful local song, dance, and comedy group performs to a delighted crowd. In many villages, food is also provided. Finally, the winners and vote counts are announced, and the winners give their modest acceptance speeches to the crowd. In Hertao, Liu Yang, a 33-year-old shop owner, thanks villagers for re-electing him village chairman for his third 3-year term. As dusk approaches, villagers leave on foot for home, quietly with no celebration, only with the hope that their elected leaders will perform well and with the promise that their children have absorbed democratic principles that will stay with them into adulthood.
Let's see if Shen Rui has any personal experience to share with us. 沈瑞，你在魁九村工作期间曾经历过村委会换届选举吗？现实情况是否真的做到了委员会由村民直接选举产生呢？
我刚好经历过一次选举。
I experienced an election. That time, candidates in their 30s and 20s for the positions of village chief and party secretary were elected in place of the incumbents in their 50s. So, the closer we are to the grassroots level of our country, the more we need democracy. Why? Because the eyes of the people are discerning. And the people who are elected are basically the ones who are also based in the village. Everyone knows you from growing up together. They know clearly what kind of person you are. So, if you're not elected by the people, you can't accomplish anything in the village at all. No one would listen to you. In plain language, you would not be able to convince the public. Because we now have a very wide variety of ways to report complaints. Whoever gets elected knows very clearly that they must serve the people and that all issues, big or small, must go through the village forum.
Thank you, Shenrui. And here is another video I want to show you guys.
Village committees manage public affairs, mediate disputes, and convey villagers' opinions and demands to the government. To better understand how the system works, I went to Maiyang village in Zhejiang. Right now, a democratic consultation meeting is being held to discuss the issue of relocation. The village recently planned to allocate 66 soon-to-be-built apartments to 49 households. How to distribute these apartments has triggered heated debate among villagers.
除了这个恳谈会，有时候我们这个走访的形式，去这个下村里每户村民走访、谈话谈心的方式进行也有。通过这个民主恳谈，村里这个事情在老百姓的心目中都能起到这个公开的作用。
我们这种形式已经很习惯了，是这样子嘛，更民主、更开放一点嘛。
By listening to suggestions and accepting scrutiny through consultation, decision makers are able to reach the broadest possible consensus in their work.
Historically, in ancient China, the existence of the clan system, landlords, serf owners, and rural gangsters used to have a profound influence on rural lives across the country. For example, the following scenes document the perspectives of those who lived through Tibetan serfdom. The ordinary farmers were powerless in the face of exploitation and oppression.
The scene shows a serf paying capitation, or personal tax. A popular saying went that you were taxed from cradle to grave. Among the 200 forms of taxation enforced in Tibet at the time, there was birth tax, capitation tax, a tax on joining a temple to train as a lama, a tax for being imprisoned, and even a tax on burying the dead.
In recent decades, the country's efforts have been consistent in anti-crime campaigns, while cracking down on gangsters who manipulate village elections, enter village committees, or put their proxies on the committees instead. 沈瑞，据你观察，各地近年来开展的打击村霸等黑恶势力专项活动，为普通村民的生活带来哪些影响呢？
我觉得最明
I
显
think the most
的，
obvious sign is that the villagers are confident to speak, vote, and report. And now, they are very keen to offer advice and suggestions for the development of their hometown. At the same time, within the scope of their ability, they actively participate in the development and construction of their hometown. That is to say, they truly integrate themselves with their hometown. They are willing to contribute to the development of their hometown, rather than being a bystander, just passively waiting for its development.
All right. The village officials and those who work on the grassroots level have brought about changes that are historically meaningful.
I was startled to discover that every poor family in China has its own file. Every poor family, that's millions of poor families, each with its own customized plan, each checked monthly and digitized for central compilation and analysis. Equally startling, local officials are dispatched to impoverished villages to manage poverty alleviation for 2 years or more.
And the immense efforts paid off. China has almost wiped out illiteracy over the past century. In 1921, the illiteracy rate was nearly 90%, but that number dropped to less than 4% in 2020.
So by far, we will look into the inquiry about whether China has direct elections. Another frequently asked question is, how does China compare with other Western liberal democracies?
Different governments take that to mean different things, but it's fair to say that for many Westerners, it means one thing and one thing only: the right to vote directly for their leader. So it goes without saying then that many Westerners will automatically reject the idea that China values democracy without diving deeper, and I think that's a big mistake.
I want to ask Shenrui for his take on this. 沈瑞，曾有外媒在报道中质疑中国乡村基层民主的现状，有的写道中国村民的整体教育水平较低，不能充分理解选举的意义和重要性。你认为这种说法和你看到的事实情况相符吗？
我觉得是不相符的。
I don't think it reflects the reality. Because our people are very clear about the essence of the election, which can be summed up in 4 Chinese characters, meaning they are the masters of the country. Our people know very well that they are the masters of this country. So, in all kinds of elections, they are persistent and discerning when electing those who would defend their interests. Our people have already embarked on the broadest, truest, and most effective path of democracy with very rich experience. So, I think it's wrong to say that our people don't fully understand the meaning of elections. If you don't believe it, just go ahead and try for yourself. If you try to get something done without passing the resolution of the village forum, the people will tell you what democracy is.
Thank you, Ray, for sharing with us today what you have seen, heard, and felt at a grassroots level. It's absolutely valuable. So, what is the true meaning of democracy? Should we only accept the definition provided by a select number of Western countries?
It's worth noting, though, that many Western democracies don't actually allow citizens to vote directly for their leader. In my home country, New Zealand, for example, votes can only be cast for the political party of choice. Who will take the role of leader within the party, and ultimately the leader of the country if that party wins, is decided behind closed doors, outside of the public realm. And apart from voting in general elections every few years, it's literally impossible for every individual to cast a vote on every single issue that comes up in government, hence the term representative democracy.
The success story of China has challenged many concepts that some Western scholars once considered untouchable.
The success of China since 1978 shows that whatever the political system, it must all boil down to good governance. In other words, the ultimate test of a good political system is to what extent the system can ensure good governance in the eyes of the people. The stereotyped dichotomy of democracy versus autocracy sounds increasingly hollow in today's complex world, given the large numbers of poorly governed democracies. I think China's rise may eventually usher in a paradigm shift from this dichotomy of democracy versus autocracy to that of good governance versus bad governance. Good governance may take the form of the Western political system. It may also take the form of non-Western political system.
Although China's unique past has helped achieve world-renowned success, the country has fallen victim to controversies. However, I think just because the development model is unique and different doesn't mean it can't be effective. What are your thoughts on this? We'd love to hear what you think. Alright, that's for today. If you like our show, remember to click like and subscribe. I'm Sina. Until next time.